Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Today we are here with the COPAL, Defending Human Rights and Immigrants Family. Today we want to mention as Valentine's Day approaches, it's a day that's traditionally centered around love and connection. Here at COPAL, with the Immigrant Defense Network, we are here to reaffirm a simple message, powerful of love, community, and that human rights must guide our response at this moment. With us, we're going to have this press conference with Francisco Segovia, our executive director, Edwin Torres, the director of Immigrant Defense Network, Melissa Lopez Frazin, a former member of Minnesota Senate, Munira Malisimak, a family nurse practitioner, Luis, a family community member from Rochester, Hector, another community member from Minneapolis, and then Jason Chavez, the city council of Ward 9 in Minneapolis. And we'll start with Francisco.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, good afternoon, good morning. I'm Francisco Segovia. Tomorrow, Saturday, February 14th, marks 1 year anniversary of our campaign, Lower Your Neighbor campaign. And it's important to mention that just a year ago when we began with this campaign, the very same day that we began with this campaign in 2025, ICE conducted a raid in the city of Rochester. They went to this restaurant, Nupa, and people were arrested. What happened that moment, as the community in Rochester and some of our team members responded to support the families impacted, I don't think we never imagined what was going to be ahead of us. So our brain wouldn't even think about that what was ahead of us was going to be as terrible as we have seen and witnessed. We never thought that 3,000 agents were going to come to Minneapolis, storm our cities, terrorize our communities, traumatize our children, and take the lives of members of our communities. Let's remember that for the 7+ days, Minnesota, Minneapolis, the Twin Cities remain under siege. Yesterday, February 12, 2026, the federal border czar, Tom Homan, announced that the operations in Minnesota have concluded. It would be so naive from us to believe him and believe the administration. However, if that was the case, that the operations are ending, the Department of Homeland Security, the border czar, and the Trump administration have left our cities in ruins, have our families in fear, our businesses collapsing. Many people's lives have been impacted, and this administration should be held accountable for what they did to us. So with that, I want to say that we as an organization that is centered in the building our Latino community, we are here with our community. We are here with everyone who stood up against what happened to all of us. And this is clear for us that this is not about immigration. The immigration and the immigrants are the vehicle to achieve something else greater, which is to destroy our democracy. And we are here to protect our democracy. With that, thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Edwin Torres de Santiago, and I'm here on behalf of the Immigrant Defense Network. We're a statewide coalition of more than 100 organizations, coordinating rapid response, training tens of thousands of constitutional observers, providing direct family support, legal aid, community protection, and doing one of the largest civilian-led documentations that this country has seen. For the last 73 days, we witnessed a pattern of enforcement that went on beyond policy implementation. What we saw and what we documented through our trained constitutional observers were systematic rights violations, repeated. This was not a targeted enforcement, it was saturation. Military-style deployments in residential neighborhoods, workplace raids in the middle of the day, parents detained in front of their children, children's coming home from school to an empty house. And yes, ICE agents were inside hospitals, and they even detained people outside of public schools. We documented chemical agents deployed to our neighbors, including against our trained constitutional observers and members of the press. We saw elders hospitalized, we saw children injured, we saw drones surveilling communities like we were in a war zone. And we lost two of our neighbors, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. Let me be clear, immigrant rights are human rights. Human rights include due process. Human rights include protections from excessive abuse and force. Human rights include the right to live free from collective punishment. From a network perspective, this was not just traumatic, but it devastated our communities. Dozens of small businesses have closed, millions drained from our local economies, thousands of families still living in fear. We've documented heart attacks triggered by raids, broken bones, fractured skulls, people shot, people killed. And let's not forget the 38 people that have died inside detention centers just in this administration. And the horrors that we have heard from detainees inside the detention centers are living through conditions that are pretty horrific. From women not having pads while they're going through their menstrual cycle, chained up, 40 to 50 in one single cell, with one bathroom, no access to medicine or care, no calls to loved ones, and quickly moved from one detention to the next. But here's what we also saw in our communities. We saw tens of thousands of trained observers who stepped up to defend our constitutional rights. We saw legal teams working around the clock. We saw faith leaders stepping up and opening their doors, and we saw neighbors protecting neighbors. We didn't collapse, but we are in ruins. Minnesota organized, and we showed the rest of the country what is possible when you love your neighbor. Ending this operation, and it's naive to say that it's ending because just this morning there were operations in Shakopee. It doesn't answer why these tactics were allowed. It does not provide justice for the families who are grieving. And that's why we're calling for full, transparent investigation into the enforcement practices, the use of force, the surveillance, and the civil rights violations. Immigrant communities are not a battleground. Our neighborhoods are not war zones, and our families are not collateral damage. We will continue to defend all of our rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. Good morning. My name is Melissa Lopez Franzen, and I'm a former Minnesota State Senator, and a proud Minnesotana and a proud Latina. And I'm here standing in solidarity with all of you, with COPAL and the Immigrant Defense Network, and all the community members that have supported our communities in numerous ways during this time, in particular, the families of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, whose lives were taken tragically and violently protecting their neighbors. While we welcome the news that the federal occupation of Minnesota, and that's what we should be calling it, it was an occupation by our own federal government. We welcome the news that it's coming to an end. We recognize that Minnesotans will continue to recover from these scars of this operation for many years to come. We still have a long road ahead, and it will take years to wake up from this terrible nightmare of the violence and the trauma, and let me say the generational trauma inflicted in our community. We cannot stop fighting for what's right, and we will continue to demand accountability from our federal government and the human rights violations, the due process violations, the free speech violations, and I can go on. Anything less is ignoring the continued attack on our democracy and the founding principles of this country. And as a former government elected official, I'm deeply disturbed and, quite frankly, There are no words to describe how offended I am that our government is doing to its people. The violence and blatant disregard to humanity that we witness at the hands of our federal government. And just last night, I heard from a Venezuelan political refugee who came to our country, who came to this great state of Minnesota to pursue the American dream. She said, sometimes society needs a wake-up call. And I would say, Minnesota, it's America's wake-up call. And we will not stop fighting for accountability. And we will not stop fighting to let people know what we endured and make sure that what happened here in Minnesota does not happen anywhere in our country, in America, ever again. We're not going to lose hope. We're not going to lower our guard. If anything, what we did here in Minnesota is starting a movement and growing stronger as a community. So thank you for your time. And this is not over. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Munira Malamasak. I'm a family nurse practitioner and the CEO of the Inspire Change Clinic. Our clinic saw rapid no-shows, and a lot of hospitals, clinics around us were saying the same thing. On December 2nd, we received a phone call. This is before we even started our rapid response, where a young lady who's pregnant thought she may be in labor and said, hey, can someone just come and see if I'm actually in labor or not? At the time, I don't take care of pregnant women. I called a friend of mine who's OB, and we went to her house. She's 8 centimeters dilated and did not want us to call the ambulance. She wanted to do a home birth. She did not qualify to do home birth. So we gave her a ride in my small Tesla to get her the care that she needed to the hospital, worried about her having a baby in the back of the car and me having to figure out malpractice insurance and so many other things that go in your head. But at the same time, we had to do something. And that's the day that we realized that rapid response is needed to bring care to people in their own home where they feel the most safe and give them that dignity and access to care that they deserve. Because what was happening was something outside of their control. And we wanted to make sure that we saw them and we valued them. And someone asked me the other day, you're an immigrant too. Weren't you scared to do this and start this whole rapid response and get doctors to volunteer and do this work at your clinic? It's like, that's what Minnesotans are. And that's what immigrants are. We adapt, we're resilient. And I am proud to be a Minnesotan also, because we had 153 doctors that are volunteering for us currently and providing care to patients. What I want to share is people do not have access to medications and are too afraid to go get medications or have not gone to work and now cannot afford. Do I pay for my rent or do I buy this medication that I need? Or people were detained and not given their medications. And now that 90-day medication supply that they had, they do not have it, and it causes $2,000. But this is a medication that is a life or death kind of medication that they need. So we as a community needing to figure out how do we get this medication to this individual became a burden, not just on that person, but all of us. What happened to us as a community. And I am proud to say that we showed up and we have been able to meet people where they're at, but this is not over. The trauma that has happened, it's going to take years to get over it. And I hope large organizations and our government gives us that resource also, because this community has been put through something I can't even imagine any human being going through. One story I think about are 3 young kids. We got a call from school and we went there, did a suture for the little kid. And I can tell a home that has food and a home that doesn't have food. That day, we usually bring grocery with us, but that day we didn't bring any. And I just asked, do you guys have any food? The oldest one says, oh, we're good. We don't need any food, just because she was too scared to say yes, because she thought if she said we don't have any food, they were going to get taken away, that we were going to report them. And he said in Spanish, the youngest one, I'm hungry, I haven't eaten. And he said it in a way that I don't speak Spanish, but I understood what he said. And that kind of fear has no place in Minnesota. And we were able to bring him the food that he needs. And our plan is to make sure that we continue this work that we're doing. And I'm so happy to have COPAL had me come up here today and to provide the care that communities need. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Luis Cruz Torres, and I'm from Rochester, Minnesota. On January 31st, I was driving down Marion Road when I noticed two ICE vehicles following behind me. I switched lanes to confirm it, and both vehicles had stayed behind me. One of them had turned its lights on, even though I had committed no traffic violations. I drove to the government center, hoping there would be witnesses. When I parked, one vehicle boxed me in from behind and another from the front. An agent demanded my ID, but refused to explain why I was being followed. He unlocked my car, ordered me out, and arrested me. While I was in their vehicle, they asked me for my name. I told them that they had my license plate and should be able to figure it out. They then asked me if my name was Luis, and I said yes. While in their vehicle, the agents told me I had come back with an unknown status in the United States. I told them that was impossible. I was born and raised in Rochester. They took me behind a Cub Foods where they took me out of the car and put handcuffs on my feet and chains around my waist. They took photos of me and attempted to fingerprint me on the phone. I was then taken to the Whipple building where I saw multiple people chained like me in a single file line being loaded onto a bus. At the Whipple building, they asked me for my name again, and then I told them my name is Luis Cruz Torres. The agents who arrested me then accused me of giving them a different name earlier, saying I had always said my name is Luis Cruz. However, earlier they had only asked me for my first name. Agents could not verify my identity until I gave them my social security number. Only then did they confirm I am a U.S. citizen. Even so, they did not release me and instead threatened to press charges for failure to identify myself and told me they'd transfer me to a county jail. At Whipple, I was placed in a cell with no bed, given minimal food and water, and kept restrained. Eventually, I was walked out of the building and released at the front gate. This should never happen. ICE is detaining U.S. citizens and terrorizing our communities across this state. It is time to end these inhumane practices and remove ICE from our cities. Thank you.
Bueno, pues yo lo voy a decir en español porque mi inglés no es el 100%, pero tengo una historia. Me llamo Héctor Torres. La situación ahorita en este momento que se está viviendo aquí en Minnesota es muy difícil. Yo fui arrestado, tratado como criminal, amarrado de los pies, de las manos, llevado a Texas en menos de 3 horas, juzgado, pues erróneamente, donde pues no nada más soy yo, ni los latinos, somos mucha gente de diferentes países que somos abusados. A mí me golpearon. Fui a prisión por 5 días aquí en Minnesota. Y de verdad es muy difícil, muy traumante la situación que viven muchos de nuestros hermanos en Texas, en Minnesota, donde sea, que somos arrestados por estas personas que no se merecen ni respeto ni un saludo, porque ellos nos tratan como criminales, como gente que no somos humanos. Y ellos tienen hijos, esposas, y ellos mismos también como comunidad nos tratan como una porquería. Y ahora que doy mi testimonio por 5 minutos ante ustedes, ante las personas que hemos sufrido todo esto, porque no es fácil. A mí se me salen las lágrimas porque las personas que vivimos este proceso es muy difícil. Somos atacados, no nos dan de comer como debe de ser. Yo soy diabético y necesito mi medicamento. Tengo tapadas 3 arterias y necesitaba mi medicamento, y hasta después de 3 días me dieron mi medicamento, sabiendo que estoy malo y ellos lo veían en mis récords de médicos, y no les importa. No les importa y desgraciadamente como comunidad y como persona que he sufrido todo este trauma, no deberíamos de sufrirlo porque realmente somos humanos. Y en un día de estos, Dios es el que tiene la última palabra. Gracias, que tengan buena tarde y que Dios los bendiga a todos.
Hi everyone, my name is Jason Chavez. I have the honor and privilege of representing Ward 9 on the Minneapolis City Council, and I think it's important to acknowledge that this surge is not over yet, and that we still need our community members to show the love and compassion that they have been showing for these past few months to our community. What we know is that while they say that the surge is over, immigration officials continue to terrorize our community members. They continue to kidnap our community members, and they continue to racially profile our neighbors. I think it's important to acknowledge the stories we heard just a little bit ago where U.S. citizens get stopped, where our immigrant community members get sent into these concentration camps without food, water, where they have to wait for days to get medical attention and medication. These are stories that we have heard across the state of Minnesota, where then they get sent to Texas without oftentimes their family members knowing they're getting sent to Texas, without an A number being listed. We had a Minnesota resident who died under custody in Texas, who's also is a story that we need to continue talking about, a Latino resident. And what we have seen happen in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota has been horrendous, but I think it's also important to acknowledge that Valentine's Day is coming, and it's a day of love and friendship. And the reason the federal government felt forced to say they're going to end their operation, and we're going to believe it until we see it, but the reason they were forced to say it is because of the love of our neighbors and the resiliency of our immigrant community. If it wasn't for this incredible combo of the strength and power and resiliency of our immigrant neighbors and of our community members who were out on the streets demanding change, who were observing, who were giving our immigrant neighbors, and will continue to give our immigrant neighbors rides to work, the federal government wouldn't have felt the need to say that they were going to end this operation. It's only because of the people of this city and this state that the federal government is saying they're going to do this. And while we are going to wait to see it for our own selves, we know that they felt the need to say this because of the resiliency of the people of this state. And we know that they're going to go to other cities and do the same thing. And it's going to be important for the people of this city and this state to say that not one more. It doesn't matter where you're going. We're not going to allow you to continue to kidnap our community members and our loved ones. And I think we need to acknowledge what we experienced here in the city and the state. We had federal agents throw chemical warfare into our parks. We had federal agents stop cars and ask people, you have an accent, are you a citizen? You had our immigrant neighbors present their work permits, their visas to these federal agents, and federal agents would say, we don't care, you're not a US citizen, and then they would send them to Texas. You had federal agents literally brutalize our neighbors, murder 2 of them, shoot 1 in the leg, take someone and ended up dying in Texas. And these are the stories that we cannot allow our neighbors to forget. But as we know, Valentine's Day is here, and I think it's important to acknowledge that the love of our neighbors, the care of our neighbors, is the reason that the conversation at the national level has shifted. We know that we're going to win, and we know that we may have lost some of our neighbors and our loved ones, but we're going to win because of the love of our community members. And the thing we'll continue to tell the people of the city and the state is to never forget what they made, what they did to us, to never forget the stories of our family members, because as we're doing this today, our neighbors and family members are still hiding. They're still at home, or they're praying as they go to work, hoping that they're not the next one. And we may not have the cameras in our face anymore, but it doesn't mean that the stories aren't real and that the stories aren't still here, and that our community members are going to continue to be discriminated against, and families are still going to be separated after this. What Francisco was talking about, this campaign started before the surge. Families were being separated before the surge, and families are going to be separated after the surge. So we can't let up until this whole system is done for. So just want to say thank you for the work from COPAL.
Thank you to all our speakers. Do we have any questions? Great.
I'm Victor Palomino with Ampers. How did you feel after this announcement? Like, you feel a little bit more positive? You think that this is something that is gonna change the minds or the feeling of the community? Or do you think that this is gonna evolve?
Yeah, when we heard Tom Holman give his press release, right away, our community and our network was looking at the statistics, the real things. And we said, what message does our community need to know, right? Will this message confuse them and make them think that it's safe to go out in the streets? And the answer to that is yes. Our job at COPAL is to protect communities and the dignity of our communities. And that means not giving false hope.
And for the Love Your Neighbors, your Immigrant Neighbors campaign, if somebody is listening to this and they want to help the immigrant community, what are some things they can do? What are some places they can reach out? What are the best things they can do to support the immigrant community?
Yep, thank you. Good question. There are a few ways. One, they can come to our website, the IDN, the Immigrant Defense Network website, or COPAL's website, and send us an email requesting some of the posters that we have. I think a law can be expressed through different ways. Go and visit that restaurant, the immigrant restaurant that needs to see people there. Go and tell your neighbor, hey, we love that you are here. We want to be part of or build relationships. So I think the courage that Minnesotans have demonstrated through all this time has been so important. And sometimes just to say to someone, we are here. Let me know if you need anything. We don't need to go into any more than just the simple thing that, like, my neighbors come to me and say, hey, I'm here. Let me know if you need anything. That's it. Nothing more. And so those are some of the demonstrations that I think that we can have, that we care for each other. Children's needs to be recognized, and again, we don't need to get into some weird things about where you're from and stuff like that, because that can scare people if you get into those details. But just the fact of saying, we are here, we are your neighbors, we are here, we see you when you go to school. If you need anything, here we are. So those are some of the simple things that oftentimes we need of each other. And so, but again, check out our websites, the work that we do, and show solidarity.
One last question. One last question. After pretty much 3 months of this occupation and this search with the immigrant community, when you go out and talk to your constituents, with your people that come here to the center, what do you think is the thing that had break the most? Like, what do you think, what people are saying, and how do they feel now as immigrants living in Minnesota? Like, with the people that you talk, like, is there a way to repair what has been broken, and what are people saying?
I probably have had a few conversations. I don't know what everyone is saying, but one of the things that is the fear is this true. Can we go back to that normal, understanding that after this storm, the sense of normality is not going to be there anymore? Because I think Melissa spoke about, or Dr. Munira, I spoke about trauma. Trauma doesn't go away when ice is out. The trauma will remain, historical trauma will remain. So right now, the stories I hear, one of them is children's asking their moms, can I go back to school? I don't want to be home. I want to see my friends. And moms obviously are, maybe it's not safe yet. Some of my team members who are calling people who have been requested support for rent, They call families, and the families, they can hear the mom trying to figure things out. Kids wanting to be out and enjoying things, but mom is nervous to let them go out because of the fear. So those things are not going to go away tomorrow or when I says we are done. The fear will remain with us. Those families who stopped earning for several months, because if we go back to when that began, I mean, it began a year ago. However, in Minnesota, we were more aware of ICE presence in October of last year. And some people began missing work since October of last year. So now we are in February. So if you didn't go to work for 5 months, people are, I mean, if they had savings, the savings are gone. They need to figure out how to pay their bills. They had to catch up. And so those things are not easy to fix right away. So I think as an organization, we are going to keep walking with our community to see what is ahead of us, to ask local governments like our city council Chavez did, to ask the city of Minneapolis to put money back into the communities for rent, for businesses to operate. So those are some of the things that the ones that we are here, we need to figure out how to rebuild. And again, like any storm, it's not easy. Recovering takes time.
What message do you have for the people that are immigrant community? They're seeing this, they're hearing the news, and now they're kind of like expecting. What message do you have for them, if you want to say?
Well, I think it's hard to ask to people to, that people have endured a lot. Resiliency, and it's so easy to say, hey, be resilient, be resilient. That seems to be the easy thing to say. But that's the thing that we need to say. Because at the end of the day, resistance comes in multiple ways. Just being home with your children, giving them the sense of hope that this is going to be over, that's a level of resistance as well. Being able to figure out how to go to the hospital and navigating the situation, as some examples were given, that's a level of resistance. The people, our brothers and sisters, who are not impacted by the immigration status, who are at the streets in Minneapolis with their jackets of vest, guarding our restaurants or guarding the schools, guarding the streets. Those are essential peoples as well. And what I'm telling them is thank you for doing that. Thank you, everyone who has stood up against this occupation that we had. And let's keep working together to rebuild this. One more thing. Once ICE is out, the issues are not gone. We need an immigration reform so we can get done with this. We need to fix this broken system that generates what we have seen. And what we saw in Minnesota, we are afraid that may happen in other cities. And that's why it is key that other cities that see this, they need to be prepared, and we need to fight together for an immigration reform and preserving our democracy.
Thank you. Can I have one question for Councilmember Chavez?
Yes.
What is the city doing now? We have this announcement, we have all this stuff that happened. What are you preparing? How are you responding to the immigrant community?
Yeah, so when we came back to City Hall in January, we immediately called for an eviction moratorium because what we heard from our immigrant neighbors is that they were struggling to pay the rent. And then we began noticing an ordinance that we would be able to have the power to enact an eviction moratorium should Governor Walz call for a state of emergency. So that's a policy that we're moving through the city council right now. We introduced another policy that would create a 60-day rental pre-eviction notice for emergencies. So right now, well, last year I led the city council in moving it from a 14-day to 30-day. We introduced a policy to make it 60 days for emergencies during this occupation. That's going through the city council process right now. Now, when it comes to other stuff that has been adopted, right when this surge began in December, I immediately worked with the city council to strengthen our separation ordinance, which says that our city of Minneapolis will not be doing federal immigration law, so we don't work with ICE. So we were able to adopt that in December, and then since December to now, I worked with the city council to increase our immigration legal service funding to $1 million in Minneapolis. So neighbors that are struggling to find lawyers, need support with their habeas corpus, support with legal assistance. Maybe they were shipped to Texas, kidnapped to Texas, and sent back. We were able to increase historic level funding for that. And then last week, I also worked with the city council to fund $1 million in rental assistance. So these measures have passed, those two already. They're adopted. They're resources now for the city of Minneapolis. And then next week, we have a variety of measures that we're going to take at the city council. One of them is allocating $5 million for a small business relief fund, making sure that businesses and our economy that was devastated from and is still being devastated from Operation Metro Surge, that businesses have the support that they need to survive this economic downfall that we're struggling with, along with other asks to the county, state, and federal government to also support Minnesota, not just in Minneapolis, with recovery efforts, because we're going to see a big devastation to our local economy, in addition to asking Congress to repeal the Laken Riley Act, which is something that has impacted residents here in the state, along with not supporting funding for immigration enforcement, and then asking for immigration reform. A variety of things. I think it's a responsibility of local municipalities to voice their concerns and also be a part of the solution. If the federal government is unwilling to support our neighbors, it must be the responsibility of local government to act.
Do you know how much of all these operations or having the federal forces here had cost, like monetary to the city? Like how much money?
I don't have the answer to that, except that I do know that since December, the impact on Lake Street has been over $46 million. On small businesses on a given week, it's $5 to $10 million in Minneapolis. There's more numbers that are going to come out next week on different parts of the city. But if you look at $46 million since December on Lake Street, and that has only increased since the end of January, there is no number to put the devastation that this inhumane tactic from the federal government has caused to our neighbors, not only in Minneapolis, but across the state.
And if somebody is interested in reaching out these resources, where they can go?
Yeah, we have 30 seconds left.
Yeah, so if you live in Minneapolis, you would reach out to City of Minneapolis, your city council member, ask them how you can get connected. Obviously, there's other resources in other parts of the cities, different cities in the state. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you all. And if you have any more questions, visit us at COPAL at www.copalmn.org. Thank you.